Welcome! Each year I put together a list of astronomical events for the subsequent year. This video is about the events in 2022. It's going to be quite an exciting year. We have two total eclipses of the moon visible from the United States, and also the sun is going to be very active this year, so lots to look forward to. So what is going to be happening in January? On January 2nd we have a new moon. Now each month I'm going to give the date of the new moon and the full moon because those tell you the optimum times to be observing. A few days either side of new moon, the sky is at its darkest and you can see the faintest objects. On January 3rd we are at the peak of the quadrantid meteors. I'll talk a bit more about those in a second. On the 4th of January the Earth is at perihelion, that's its closest approach to the Sun. That's 147 million kilometers or about 91.4 million miles. So the Sun is at its largest in the sky and the Earth is receiving more energy from the Sun than at any other time of the year. On the 3rd of January we have possibly the best meteor shower of 2022, that's the quadrantid. They can have up to 120 meteors per hour. They can be bright and greenish and some fireballs are seen. To watch them, look north at about 8 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The moon will be no problem, it's just one day after new moon. Unfortunately, there's not a lot going on in February. We have the usual new and full moon, and we have both Venus and Mercury as morning stars, i.e. their fullest western elongation, which means they're their highest point in the sky, so it's your best chance to see them. In March of 2022, we have the spring equinox or the vernal equinox that occurs at 11:24 on the 20th of March. That means that the Sun is on the equator moving from the southern hemisphere to the northern hemisphere. So northern hemisphere days will be getting longer and southern hemisphere days will be getting shorter. There's quite a lot going on in April of 2022. We have a new moon on April Fool's Day, so it could be called a Fool's Moon. We have the Lyrid meteor shower peaking on the 22nd of April, but unfortunately because of the moon, the observing conditions are going to be unfavorable. Mercury becomes an evening star on the 29th of April. That means it's at its greatest eastern elongation. And we have another new moon on the 30th of April. Now, if you have two full moons in a month, that's called a blue moon. If you have two new moons in a month, you have what is called a black moon. And on the 30th of April, we have a partial eclipse of the Sun. Unfortunately, the partial eclipse is only visible from the southern tip of South America. It goes on for a couple of hours between 20 and 22 UT. And at maximum it's only 63% obscured. On the 6th and 7th of May we have the peak of the Acurid meteor shower. They can get up to 30 meteors per hour and the moon is not a problem, so you might see a few of those meteors. On the 16th of May we have a full lunar eclipse. A total lunar eclipse occurs when the moon moves into the Earth's dark shadow, in other words what's called its umbra. This eclipse is particularly favorable for North and South America, as you can see from the map in the bottom right here. It will peak at about 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time on the 15th of May. And as you can see, the moon moves deep into the umbra on this particular eclipse. In June of 2022, we have our first of 3 supermoons during the year. That's when the moon is at its closest approach to the Earth when it goes into a full lunar phase. Mercury becomes a morning star on the 16th of June. And on the 21st of June, we have the summer solstice. That's when the Sun is at its maximum altitude in the northern hemisphere. So that will be the longest day of the year. On the 5th of July, Earth will be at aphelion. That's its furthest distance from the Sun. So that is at 152 million kilometers, which I think is about 94 million miles. So we'll be getting our least amount of energy from the Sun at that particular time. On the 14th of July, we have another supermoon, and the difference between a supermoon is not that great. You can see here on the left we have the moon at its furthest distance from the Earth, the size that it will appear, and on the right we have what a supermoon will look like. So it's just a little bit larger. We have another meteor shower, the Delta Acarids, on the 28th and 29th of July. They're about 20 an hour and there's no interference from the moon. On the 28th, again, we have a new moon. On the 12th of August, we have our 3rd supermoon of the year. And Saturn is at opposition on the 14th of August. That's our best opportunity to observe it. So if you've got a small telescope or even binoculars, you should be able to see the planet south at midnight, and you even might be able to see the rings clearly. On the 27th, Mercury becomes an evening star again. In September of 2022, we have the autumnal equinox. That's when the sun is passing from the northern hemisphere to the southern hemisphere. That happens at 0:55 UT on the 23rd of September. On the 26th, Jupiter is in opposition, so it's your best opportunity to see Jupiter. Again, it will be directly south at midnight. So again, a small telescope or binoculars, you should be able to see the planet, maybe some of the cloud bands, but you may well see some of the 4 Galilean moons that orbit Jupiter. In October, on the 7th, we have the Draconic meteors. It's going to be unfavorable. They're a relatively low rate meteor of only 10 per hour, but the moon is going to make the seeing of those meteors more difficult. Mercury becomes a morning star on the 8th of October, so it's your best opportunity to see it in the morning. We have the Orionid meteors on the 21st to 22nd. Again, the moon makes it favorable. And on the 25th, we have a partial solar eclipse. Unfortunately, this partial solar eclipse is only visible from parts of Russia, and its maximum coverage is only 80%. In November, on the 4th and 5th, we have the Taurid meteors. It's about a 10 per hour meteor shower, and it will be near full moon, so there's not really much of a show going to be put on there. On the 8th, we have a total eclipse of the moon again, which means it's a full moon. Later in the month, on the 17th and 18th, we have the Leonid meteors. It's about 15 meteors per hour, and again, the moon makes it unfavorable. So on the 8th of November, the lunar eclipse is going to occur. It's visible again from North and South America and East Asia. The peak time is about 11 hours UT. In December of 2022, the planet Mars is at opposition, so it's your best opportunity to see that. We have the Geminid meteors, which can be spectacular with 120 meteors per hour, and unfortunately the moon is unfavorable. On the 21st of December, we have the winter solstice. That's the sun reaching its furthest excursion to the south. That occurs at 2040 UT. On the 21st to 22nd of December, the Ursid meteors, they're about 10 an hour, and it is favorable. The moon is not going to interfere very much. One object that's going to be visible throughout the year is the sun, and the sun is going to be in a particularly exciting phase for this coming year. In fact, the coming several years. We're 2 years into the solar cycle 25, which means that solar activity is increasing. The expected maximum is somewhere between 2024 and 2025. It means we will have larger numbers of sunspots, bigger sunspots, and they will be lasting longer. We're going to have very high X-ray emission, so we're going to have especially large number of flares, M and X flares in particular. And that will mean there's more coronal mass ejections and geomagnetic storms. So the sun is worth keeping an eye on throughout the year. However, if you're going to observe the sun, you have to be careful. Do not look directly at the sun, even when it's fairly cloudy. Do not use any form of optical instrument like binoculars or a telescope to look at the sun. You'll damage your eyes permanently. The only way to look at the sun safely through a telescope is to have one of these solar filters on the front of it, and that will let you be able to see the sunspots without getting all the energy from the sun focused on your eye. So be careful and enjoy the coming solar maximum. So for the coming year, I hope your skies will be clear and you'll get good viewing of all the objects you want to see. Until next year, goodbye.